Elon Musk was interviewed by Jordan Peterson, and hands down, one of the most intense and powerful moments was when he mentions what the woke mind virus had done to his son, Xavier.
Yeah, well, that's a good reason to be the final straw. All right, so let's...
So I vowed to destroy the woke mind virus after that. And we're making some progress.
This clip has been doing the rounds online, and we are going to analyze it from a body language perspective so you can spot the instant Elon Musk's face change and how you can learn to spot this emotion during any conversation in your daily life. Now, let's talk briefly about the circumstances of the interview. It was a planned interview. It was at Tesla's headquarters. You can see the Cybertruck logo on the background. So it was made as comfortable and convenient for Musk, the one who was being interviewed. And that helps a lot because we know that Musk has this way of speaking, making a lot of pauses, thinking for several seconds what he's going to say next. This is part of his usual way of expression. We could say that it's part of his body language baseline as well. A look into his left, recalling events, making sure that he comes up with the right statement. But he's got a lot of filler words as well. So that awkward way of speaking almost all the time is what makes that strong statement. So that's why I vow to destroy the woke mind virus all the more impactful.
All right, so let's...
So I vowed to destroy the woke mind virus after that.
Now, you might have noticed that he interrupted Peterson mid-sentence and he did not stop. And just as a commentary, this is something that I have seen many people that watch the interview making this comment that Peterson was trying to get himself into the interview. Not much like an interviewer asking the questions, but also making too many remarks. I think that maybe he was in his therapist mode and not that much in interviewer mode. At the same time, I can understand this behavior from Peterson because of the pauses that Elon makes when he speaks. I'm sure that they wanted to keep this interview as fresh, spontaneous, and with as little editing as possible. So maybe that's why Peterson kept filling in the blanks and the pauses and the silences. In terms of general body language, we see that they couldn't be more different from one another. Peterson is reclining back on his seat. He's got his legs crossed, and he almost always makes sure to keep his hands free and using them for hand gestures. Musk, on the other hand, is leaning forward towards Peterson. His feet are planted flat on the ground, and most of the time he's got his hands together. In fact, if I ask someone, who do you think is the one interviewing here? Who is the one being interviewed? It would look like Elon is actually interviewing Peterson just from this snapshot of body language and just from the difference of personalities between them. And that is something that Elon was doing most of the time, not only leaning forward and keeping his hands together, but keeping his two thumbs together. This is something that is used as a pressure point to pacify yourself, to have clearer thinking. And in fact, that's part of Elon's body language baseline, his usual nonverbal behavior. I have seen him in quite a few interviews, and this is something that he does with some regularity. But you can tell that he was stressed and the topic was affecting him emotionally, talking about his son, Xavier, because at some point he had his fingers interlocked, which in fact the pressure of one finger against the other in this way and between all the fingers is something that helps you vent frustration. Because with these gestures, the fingers naturally press against each other. You can try it for yourself and try to just interlock your fingers and notice that even if you relax your hands and relax your fingers, you will notice that they are pressing against each other. That pressure is similar when you clench your fists because you're angry, or clench your jaw and you're trying to control that emotion, trying to vent it just using muscle pressure. That's why after bouts of extremely strong emotions, you feel tired and maybe your back hurts because your muscles have been tense without you even noticing. Now, when he was talking about how he was tricked, in his own words, to sign the papers for puberty blockers for his son, I see a lot of regret on his face, and it's not hard to understand why.
I was tricked into doing this, and it wasn't explained to me that puberty blockers are actually just sterilization drugs. So, anyway, and so I lost my son, essentially.
We are talking about Elon Musk, someone who talks about thinking in first principles, someone who managed to outmaneuver NASA and other space agency and beat Blue Origin at reaching orbit and all that stuff that he has done not only with SpaceX but Tesla. I am not saying that knowing that puberty blockers are just sterilization drugs is something that is common knowledge, because maybe it wasn't when he signed those papers. But I think that for someone who has his level of critical thinking, a level of reasoning in which if he cannot come up with a solution, he looks for someone who can come up with one, this brutal oversight would lead to massive regret. I don't know, maybe the people pushing for puberty blockers for his son were really persuasive. And in fact, we could instead use the word manipulation, because he was told that if his son didn't go through that process, then he was at high risk of ending his own life. But anyway, we can make a good guess that Musk feels directly responsible for what happened to his son. And that this was his responsibility and he messed up big time. And it has to be extremely infuriating for him having such a huge track record as an entrepreneur and fail to see what was really going on with puberty blockers. So let's go to the clip where he vows to destroy the woke mind virus. That clip has something particular.
Yeah, well, that's a good reason to be the final straw. All right, so let's.
So I vowed to destroy the woke mind virus after that. And we're making some progress.
In that clip, Peterson leans forward all of a sudden. And you might think that he changed his posture just because of what Musk said. But the fact is that Peterson begins to lean forward before Musk says those words. So Peterson could have reacted to something that he saw on Elon's face. And when you zoom in on that exact frame before Elon begins to make this statement, you already see a few signals of contained anger. Remember that previously we saw him showing pain on his face, and now it has changed to anger. How do we know it? Well, for three reasons. First, he's got his lips really tight, pressing against each other, and his mouth looks smaller just from that pressure. All the muscles around his mouth are tense. That is a signal. The other signal, which is a bit hard to spot due to the quality of the video, is how he's clenching his jaw. As his jaw is clenched, he's got this display of covert anger on the lower half of his face. And in the upper half of his face, it's very hard to spot, especially in real time, but the area around his eyes is all tense. He is not frowning. His eyebrows are basically in the same spot, but you can see the tiny wrinkles, and the shape of the eyes tells you that he is really pissed. And my theory is that so many years of experience of Jordan Peterson having with so many patients, talking to him, interviewing them, seeing how they change their reactions in their body language without saying anything, Peterson noticed this face, and that's what made him lean forward. And that's why Peterson, the moment Musk interrupts him, Peterson shuts up, because he knows that whatever Musk is about to say is the thing that he, the interviewer Peterson, has been trying to get out this whole time. That's why I tell you that Peterson didn't take off his therapist hat at any time, because that is part of the appeal of how he interviews people. He can be annoying with those interruptions, but it was necessary, and he knows how to read people's body language. Now, there is a signal of a very strong emotion here, and it's when Elon is going to say the words, "So I vow to destroy the woke mind virus" after that. He stutters a bit. He repeats the words, "the." Again, this is something that usually happens with him. He thinks a lot about his answers. He thinks a lot about pausing and giving the best possible answer to any question. And it comes with the cost that he can be breaking his sentences every now and then, especially now in which the emotion is so overwhelming that right after saying this, you see him pressing his lips again, clenching his jaw and staring at Peterson dead on. This is the face of a man who has absolute determination of achieving something. And you can say that it is rage, it is revenge, it is not a healthy emotion. And this is some personal opinion. I think this is the way that man should use to channel their emotions into doing something. We usually get depressed just because we feel powerless about something. We don't know what to live for, why to live for. We don't have a purpose. And having a purpose is regardless of how much money do you have. And you could ask, is it healthy or emotionally healthy to have a purpose that is based on revenge or rage? And I would say that, well, that is the next best thing, especially because the other option is just letting it devour you from the inside because you feel you cannot do anything about that. That is the thing that causes heart attacks, among other physical reasons, of course. Having rage and not being able to do anything about it, feeling powerless. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to channel rage in form of violence because it is obvious when Musk says that he set out to destroy the woke mind virus, he's not talking about violence because, in fact, he's not talking about any person or not individually or not as a group. He's talking about the mind virus itself. You could say that it's an abstract concept, but it's a very real thing in our society nowadays. So he's taking that pain and that rage as revenge to have a purpose, to do something that he feels is right. In my opinion, that is a valid way of channeling that kind of emotions, doing something about it. What caused this in the first place, and how can you prevent this pain for other people? How can you save other families from so much suffering due to brainwashing? Again, I would respect your opinion if you say that this is not the healthiest way to live, but I would say that it's an effective way of having a solid purpose and doing something good for society. And just 1 second later, he relaxes his face a bit and downplays what he has achieved so far. He just says, and we are making some progress. As in, there's a long way forward ahead for this crusade. And this is what I tell you about Peterson knowing when to just let people talk because of their body language cues and, of course, what Musk just said. Because Peterson remains almost frozen and silent and attentive to those words. As in, he knows that this is what Musk needed to say to get out of his system. So this is how you spot when someone's facial expressions change to show not only pain and maybe regret for the past, but showing concealed anger and, in their own words, wanting to do something about it. But I would love to know what you think about this in the comments. Remember to download my free 100 body language tips in the description of this video. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the body language guy. Much love and bliss.